All right, now we're going to look at our very first two column proofs here with triangle congruence. So they're going to start giving you some stuff, and they're going to have a picture for you, and they're going to say, prove these two triangles congruent. Prove that they're congruent. Okay, so your very last step always in proofs are going to be this thing that you're proving. Okay, so I already know that I want to end up with triangle, that should be a triangle, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle CDA. And I'm going to want to give it a reason right here, okay? Like by side, 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 or side angle side, or HL, or something like that. Okay, so you always want to start with the end in mind. Just like whenever I'm preparing my students for, the next lesson, I always look at their unit test at the end first so that I know how to prepare them in the following weeks. Okay, so we want to know what's our end result here. What do we want to end up at? So let's first look at the given statements and mark anything you can over here on your picture. So for instance, it says given AD is congruent to BC. AD congruent to BC. I'm going to mark those congruent. Now it also tells me, and it doesn't show up here, this should say parallel. I'm sure it shows up on your paper. It says segment AD is also parallel to BC. Okay, so if AD is parallel to BC, I can draw little arrows marking those lines parallel. So let's look at this now. We've got this side and this side congruent. We also know they share a side right here. So we can say that's congruent to itself. So we have a side, a side. We need one more thing. Well, we have parallel lines. They're always trying to hint at something if they tell you lines are parallel. Okay, we know this is a transversal going through those parallel lines, so we could mark alternate interior angles right here, congruent. Okay, you could also mark the other ones, alternate interior angles congruent, but we actually have enough information now because now we have a side, another side, and the angle in between them, so we could say these are congruent by side, angle, side. Okay, so I'm just going to make note of that up here, side, angle, side, and we could actually write that reason in step 5. We know we're going to prove them congruent by side, angle, side. Okay, so let's fill in everything else now. So our very first statement, let's go ahead and say, remember we want a justification for a side, an angle, and a side. Okay, so let's justify this first side. So we could say AD is congruent to BC is our first statement. And our reason would be, well, that was given to us right here. So we're going to say given. Oh no, here we go. If I write too fast, it zooms in. Okay, so that's our given, so that checks off an S. Alright, well we also need, let's do another easy one. We said this thing's congruent to itself. Let's write that down next. That will justify another S in side, angle, side. So we can say AC is congruent to itself, AC, and this is by the reflexive property. Okay, so that takes care of another S. Now we just need to mark those two angles congruent. Well, you always want to use your given statements somewhere in your proof. We still have this other given statement, so let's write that one next. Let's say we know that, we know that AD is parallel to BC, and that is because it is given to us. No, I don't know how to stop that. I'm sorry. Okay. That is given. Alright, so they told us they were parallel so that we could figure something out. And that something we figured out were that if we had parallel lines, this created alternate interior angles. So let's write for our fourth step that this angle is congruent to this angle. So this one we could call angle DAC, that works. And that is congruent to, if I said DAC, over here I could say angle BCA. Okay, and our reason is that they are alternate interior angles. Trying to write slow enough so it doesn't zoom. Alright, and therefore, because we proved all of that, we can say the two triangles are congruent by side angle side.